Well, we have breaking news coming in from Indonesia, viewers, where the protests have broken out outside the parliament after it unanimously voted to pass a controversial revision of its military law that expands the role of the armed forces in civilian affairs despite growing opposition from pro-democracy groups and rights groups who see it as a threat to the country's young democracy. You see those dramatic visuals coming in. You can see arson, you can see protests all happening outside the parliament of Indonesia. You can see what's happening. In fact, it happened a week ago, viewers, when this controversial law was passed. Contentious amendments to the military law were made. And the military's role has now grown, expanded, and it has raised concerns. It has triggered a stir, a protest. Students' bodies have been protesting. Right bodies are protesting. Krutat joining us on the broadcast. Krutat, tell us about this amendment of the military law. How does it really expand the powers of the military that has caused this stir in Indonesia?
Well, there are concerns over the Indonesian military having additional role into civilian life, and that has been the preliminary reason for which the specifics of the law have irked a lot of rights groups, specifically younger groups of students who are at the forefront of these protests, as we see visuals coming from the Indonesian capital, and outside the parliament we see visuals now coming in very dramatically. There have also been tear gas cans that have been fired. It is the revision and the swift passage of the law that has led by the President Prabowo Subianto's political dominance, which critics are now saying that is almost dictatorial. So this military revision, especially having increasing influence in civilian life, will get the specifics of the law as to how it actually brings in this further aspects of rigorous military law. But what the students there are protesting about, and they are saying, is that basically they want to reject this military law and extension of military powers, which will now go into the hands of the executive government, and that they will have additional role into civilian life. Remember, the national defense of any military is only supposed to be vis-a-vis the territorial sovereignty and integrity of that country. But to have greater role into civilian life is something that the protesting students are not agreeing with, and these are the tensions that we have seen since Monday, in fact. So this is the fourth continuous day of protests which have turned violent, and now we see very dramatic scenes coming outside from the Indonesian capital, where students are continuing to clash with the police officers, breaking barricades, tear gas cans being fired, vehicles being torched. Complete chaos in Indonesia at the moment.
In fact, you know, this has sparked fears of a return of the cruel rule of the dictator Suharto. You know, there was a genocide that was witnessed under his rule, you know, in Indonesia, which is considered as Southeast Asia's largest democracy right now. And, you know, there were 1 million people that, you know, lost their lives in that under Suharto's leadership in 1965, 1966. And now the human rights activists are saying they're questioning that they can, in fact, they're premonitioning that, and they're also questioning about the transparency before passing this revised law and the speed at which it was passed.
Largely about how military's powers are being increased. One of the most controversial aspects about this law is also the increase of retirement age for the top military generals in Indonesia. It is believed that former generals in the Indonesian military, which were at top positions, are at the forefront of leading this kind of a military revised law, in which the military age of retirement is now increased from 60 to 63. So this also shows that how top level military in Indonesia is also looking to exert more and more power by remaining a longer period of time in office. One of the preliminary points of contention that the younger people in Indonesia, especially student associations, are protesting against regarding this military grip that is now being attempted to be exerted in Indonesia, with a very significant revision of the military doctrine and how the military operates in Indonesia and the kind of influence that it can have on civilian life. One of the major reasons of the protests, Sakshita.
Krutat, thanks so much for joining us with those details coming in on that story. Live shots coming in, viewers, from outside the parliament in Indonesia. You can see there are hundreds and thousands of people who have gathered. The protesters have gathered. They're all young protesters who have gathered, viewers. You can see the fire, you can see the blaze there. And you can see there has been a crackdown even on those who try to cover these protests, viewers. The journalists who try to cover the protests that are happening across several cities in Indonesia. But this is the scene coming in from outside the Parliament House of Indonesia. Of course, it's a big stir. We'll keep a track of more developments, viewers.